And you leave comments here so that other coders and other people working on the project know, oh, okay, this is what the person was doing. Or if you go back to it, even like, years, months later, um, you have comments. I know, like, when we do projects and stuff like that, I may be only going to that customer once a year to whatever, twice a year maybe. So sometimes these comments can be good to kind of figure out what I was doing. So very important. You can also use the pound to, like, say we didn't want to print X, right? We could just comment it out. So now it thinks it's a comment. Very good when you're troubleshooting your code. You'll see that. So a string can be could be a number, yes, but it could also be text. There's a lot of things. It's basically text is what a string is. Integers are numbers, and float is a decimal number. So, like I said, I have it printing X, so it's printing 3, obviously. A string could also be, just wording. You can't do. You still would have to put the quote in, like hello. Obviously, going to print because I don't have the quotes around it. But a string is basically, anything text wise, even number wise. But you can't use like an integer. You can't add it and stuff like that. So that's what a string pretty much is. Strings are you'll see more as you get into like lists and stuff like that. You kind of maybe a little bit better understanding of that. Integer, like I said, is a number. So, like I said, if we were going to print y here, obviously you would get it's a number. And you'll see that when you start coding, once in a while you will get into situations where it'll say, Python will let you say, oh, that number is a string, not an integer. And you'll have to do something like this to make it an integer so that it recognizes that input as a number, not as text. And then float is pretty neat because float is a decimal number. So if we print z, see how it's 3.0, and what we could do with float is kind of interesting. So say we had, I'm just going to add, say we had w here, and it was equal to, you know, uh, just for example, it could be, it'll be a float, and it would be like, say, 3.15. Okay, so here you could do print z plus w, and then when you run it, see how it's 6.15 because it knows that this is 0, 0. Use float pretty much for anything with decimal point. Is pretty much the standard because even if you put 4